His appetite for news became more and more, and for Daniel and me it was like having to describe the world to a blind man. He wanted to know everything people said, everything they did. It was after we told him about Big Tim, about how much we hated him, that he first began to talk to us through messages rather than simply to ask questions. Never hate anyone, he wrote. Hate eats away at your soul, and when one evening we wrote that Mr. Well-Beloved thought we would soon be at war with Germany, we found his reply the next morning. It simply read, "I'm sad today." There was no time to build boats anymore now, for Daniel was busy with his first puffin carving. He had originally meant it to be a standing bird drying its wings, but no matter how hard he tried, he could not get the head quite right. So he cut off the wings in disgust and reduced it to a rather bulbous-looking puffin that seemed to me more like an owl, but I did not dare say so. As it turned out, I did not need to, for he soon discarded it and began another. It was hot that August of 1914, hotter than any summer I have known since, and the sand on Rushy Bay was too hot even to stand on by midday, so we had to retreat to the shelter of the dunes. Here Daniel would sit cross-legged in the sand, whittling away at his new puffin, and I would brush out Prince's matted fur and pick the burrs out of the hair behind his ears, while he lay panting beside me in the heat. When the sand had cooled in the late afternoon, Prince would come with us down to the sea and cavort in the waves. He would swim out towards Samson for the sticks we threw for him, and then lie beside us on the beach as we composed and wrote out our message in the sand for his master. But when we left for home at the end of the day, he never once attempted to follow us. From the top of Samson Hill, we would see him sitting alone on the beach, still watching us, or trotting away up through the dunes back to the birdman's cottage. From time to time, we did catch sight of the birdman himself, but always at a distance. We would see him emerging from his cottage door at dusk to feed the chickens or milk the goats, or we might catch a glimpse of his boat bobbing up and down as he rowed out towards Samson. In the early evening, sometimes we might see him setting off with his donkey and cart up towards Hell Bay, Prince following along behind. But the closest we ever came to actually meeting him was one day when that summer was almost over. We had left the beach later than usual that evening and were on our way back over Samson Hill when we saw him rowing out around Droopy Nose Point and into Rushy Bay itself. Above him flew his usual escort of shrieking, wheeling gulls. Prince was sitting where we had left him on the beach below. We shouted and waved, but the birdman had his back to us and never turned round. We felt sure he must be able to hear us, for we heard his whistle clearly and saw Prince bounding down the beach and into the water. He paddled out through the sea towards his boat, his small black head rising and falling with the waves. We watched as the birdman shipped his oars, leant down over the side and bundled him up into the boat. We saw Prince shake himself and heard the birdman laugh and begin to walk as he took up the oars again. Prince stood up like a figurehead in the bow of the boat as it moved slowly out towards Samson, the flock of gulls circling above. All the while we could hear snatches of the birdman's voice from across the water. He was too far away for us to hear what he was saying, but we listened all the same, straining to pick up the sense of it over the sound of the surf. "What do you think he goes over to Samson for?" said Daniel. "Nothing there, except empty houses and sand. Perhaps he goes fishing over there," I said. "He doesn't fish," said Daniel. "I've never seen him fishing, have you? And it's strange, Gracie. You only ever see him out in his boat in bad weather. Doesn't seem to bother him. You noticed that? I've seen him out in gales before now. He'll go out in any weather. Funny that, don't you think? I looked over towards where Samson lay, brooding darkly under gathering storm clouds. About it, the sea, blood red with the evening sun, surged and heaved. Island of ghosts, I said. Don't care what you say, Daniel. I tell you, there's ghosts on Samson, just like Father said there was. You only got to look at it. It's cursed, Daniel. I can tell it is. Don't believe in ghosts, said Daniel, and he turned away. I don't believe in curses either. Well, I do, I snapped, suddenly angry at him, and we walked on down through the heather in silence.